Have you ever woke up one morning and thought, how did I get here? And it is not because something dramatic happened the night before or in the morning. It's because somewhere along the way, life stopped looking like the one that you had hoped to build. Now, you still care deeply about your family and deeply about your faith and your health, your relationships, and also deeply about your purpose. Yet somehow those things, they don't seem to be reflected in your everyday life the way that you imagined that they would. Now, I don't think this happens because we make one terrible decision. I think it actually happens because of something that I call the slow drift. Now, we don't just drift overnight. No one will just wake up one morning and just decide that they are going to live out of alignment. We don't intentionally choose to become overwhelmed, and we don't intentionally neglect those things that matter most to us. We actually drift there. We drift there one commitment at a time, one opportunity at a time, one distraction at a time, and one of those I'll get back to you next week times, and also one of those seasons of putting ourselves last, and one decision that seems small in the moment until one day we actually realize that we are exhausted, disconnected, busy, but not fulfilled. Now, this drift is quiet, which is exactly why we don't notice it in the moment. Now, one area where I have experienced what I call the slow drift has been in my own business. So, as an alignment strategist, I have the privilege of working very closely with entrepreneurs. I get to know their purpose, their priorities, their processes, and the people that they lead. I become invested in their vision because I genuinely want to see them succeed. But I realized something one day. I had become so focused on helping them build their businesses that I wasn't being nearly as intentional about building my own business. Now, it wasn't that I had stopped caring about my business, it's quite the opposite. I actually cared so much about serving my clients well that little by little, my own strategic priorities kept getting pushed. Well, they got pushed till tomorrow. And there wasn't one big decision that caused it, it was one client meeting, one project, just one more email, one more opportunity to help somebody else. Now, none of these were bad, of course. In fact, they were all good things. But eventually, I realized I had slowly drifted from leading my own business intentionally to simply responding to what everyone else needed from me. Now, nothing was necessarily wrong. In fact, if someone had looked at my calendar, well, they would have probably have thought that I was doing exactly what I should have been doing. But I knew something was just not quite right. I wasn't being intentional anymore. I was simply just reacting. And that's when I realized that drift doesn't usually announce itself. It quietly becomes pretty much your normal. Now, this drift, it actually taught me something. That experience taught me I don't think I'll ever forget. Now, the greatest threat to alignment isn't always making bad decisions. Sometimes that threat is making good decisions without stopping to ask whether they're still aligned with the life and also the business that you're trying to lead. And that's why this slow drift is so difficult to recognize. Now, rarely are we pulled away by something obviously wrong. More often, we're pulled away by good opportunities, good responsibilities. We're also pulled by good intentions that quietly begin to compete with our greatest priorities. And if we never pause to evaluate them, then they slowly become our default. Now, I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions about alignment is that we assume that if we're doing good work, that we are serving others, staying busy, then we must be on that right path. But activity isn't always alignment. We can be incredibly productive and still be drifting because drift isn't measured by how busy we are. Drift is measured by the growing distance between what matters most to us in this season and how we are actually living it. And that's what I call the alignment gap. That alignment gap is that space between what we say matters most in this season and what our daily choices are actually reflecting for us. Now, there is a way back because the beautiful thing about this drift is that you don't correct it by making one giant change. You correct it the same way it happened, one intentional decision at a time, one boundary, one conversation, one commitment that you just release, one priority that you protect, one moment where you pause long enough to ask, does this still align with the life that I'm trying to build? Because alignment isn't something that you achieve once. Alignment is something you choose over and over again. So this week, I want to encourage you to ask yourself one simple question. Where have I been drifting? Not with guilt and not with shame, but I want you to ask that with curiosity. Take a look at your calendar. Look at where you have been spending your time, your energy, and also your attention. Does it reflect what matters most to you? Or have those good things slowly crowded out those right things for this season? Because awareness isn't about looking backward with regret, it's about looking forward with intention. The life you want rarely disappears all at once, it drifts. But here is the good news: if you can drift away from alignment, well, you can also find your way back, one intentional choice at a time. Now, I believe that is where lasting transformation begins. And if you are wondering whether you have drifted further than you actually realize, well, I have created some free resources for you. These resources will help you identify the areas of your life and also your business that may no longer be aligned with what matters most to you in this season. You'll find those resources on my website at micheleegbert.com. So until next time, I want you to remember this: alignment isn't about perfection, it is continually returning to what matters most.